that game, and then we're going to get Martin Keown and Matthew Upson to have a good look at that and see where the sort of highs and lows and the positives and negatives of both Arsenal and Liverpool are. It's probably a clear indication of why they're not right at the top of the table, because they're both a bit leaky at the back, aren't they? We've also got Sean Dyche on. Burnley being one of the stories of the season so far, playing some great football, great position in the league, and they play Tottenham again this weekend. And for those who don't know, yes, he's the Burnley manager, but Sean Dyche still lives in the Midlands, so each week he does the long commute. And Natalie Perks was alongside him in the car for such said commute, so have a little look.
A car share.
Let's not run away with it, because we know how unforgiving the Premier League is. It can eat you up very, very fast. You know, the games come round very quickly. That's a fine, by the way, your phone going off. That's a fine.
Sorry, I was
That's all right, that's all right.
Harsh rules in the Dyche car. Your phone rings, you get an instant fine. I can't. There might be some karaoke. We'll find out.
I was going to say, it's already carpool.
We'll find out a little bit later on. So also, a really interesting interview with Ashley Young, who wasn't part of the Manchester City side. He was rested for the defeat in the Cup in midweek. But he talks a lot about some of the sharks, as he calls them, that operate around young footballers these days, and also talking about his ambitions to be a DJ. Which is quite interesting.
Yeah.
Tammy Abraham at Swansea is on. They've obviously sacked their manager, Paul Clement, this week. And also Mark Hughes is under a lot of pressure at Stoke, so we'll be live there with Mike Pejic, who you might remember, played for Stoke in England in the 1970s. So he's talking about Stoke on the programme today, but also he's a bit of a champ when it comes to taekwondo. So I thought this is a perfect Bushell story.
Yeah, it is.
So make sure you watch. Make sure you watch Football Focus today
I'll never miss
for a bit of insight into football and taekwondo coming together.
Brilliant.
So we've got Upson and Keown on the programme. Craig David is doing Premier League predictions.
Oh, lovely.
So
is he Southampton fan?
Yes, he is a big Southampton fan, which comes out in the piece. You can't keep his light under a bushel with regard to that. But we're on at midday. On BBC One, and we are packed because it's a huge, as you were saying, it's a really busy day of football today. Everyone's playing, so we're going to try and cram in as much as we possibly can.
Brilliant stuff. Look forward to it.
Yeah.
12 o'clock power hour. Yeah.
Power out, 12 o'clock. No Christmas jumper. This is only for
Just
you.
for us.
Just for you this morning. Just for
Brilliant.
you. Yeah.
I love
Special.
it. Thanks, Dan.
I see. Is it actually his pyjama
Happy
top?
Christmas.
You just slept it in, come in.
If my mum is watching, she's probably saying, "Why are you wearing your pyjamas?"
I gave you that.
Her voice is a bit higher than that. I don't know why. I don't know why did that voice to my
Very
mum.
deep.
All right,
Deep voice,
everyone.
Great stuff. Have a great Christmas, Dad. Graham Murty, meanwhile, says he wants to make himself irreplaceable at Rangers after being given the job of manager until the end of the season, for now at least. They have won 6 games in 9 since he took temporary charge 2 months ago when Pedro Cachina was sacked. Murty said, well, if I'm good at it and I stand out, hopefully I can get to do it for longer. Now, Rangers are away at Kilmarnock today. The big one, though, is between the top 2. Celtic 5 points clear at the top, taking on Aberdeen. The visitors are confident they can do a Hearts, what Hearts did last week, and cause an upset.
We know we've got to be our best. We know that. But we're equipped with players that can do that. You know, we've got a squad that we'll call upon and we'll make sure that, you know, we're putting our best chances to win the game forward. You know, and we've done a lot of work into that, and we'll make sure that, you know, use that confidence that the boys have got for the last 2 performances and go into the game looking to get that win.
Now, in cricket, the England all-rounder Ben Stokes is returning home to the UK for what he called family reasons after a month-long spell with the New Zealand side Canterbury. He signed as an overseas player and flew out just after England had lost the first Ashes Test, sparking speculation he could be about to return to the side, but he's still suspended following his arrest in September. And it was a record-breaking day, or equalling day, for Rohit Sharma yesterday, as he did equal the fastest century in T20 international history. He made it in just 35 balls against Sri Lanka. The same feat as South Africa's David Miller. Rohit was eventually out for 118, so a record high as well T20 score for India. Premiership Rugby Union is back this weekend after the European break, and last night the Worcester Warriors eased their relegation fears, beating London Irish to move 10 points clear of them at the bottom of the table. Yes, so it's looking gloomy for Irish. It finished 23-8, Welsh wing Josh Adams scoring both tries for Worcester. Now, the defending champion, Michael van Gerwen, is in frightening form at the PDC World Darts Championship at London's Alexandra Palace. He was up against James Wilson, known as the Lethal Biscuit. But if Wilson was hoping that mighty Mike would crumble, he was disappointed, as van Gerwen won 4-0 to reach the 3rd round. Also in action later today, it is Phil the Power Taylor in his last World Championship, trying to win it for the 17th time. And in an hour's time, find out what he's got in common with Hacker the Dog from CBBC, Robbie Williams' dad, and Kevin Webster from Coronation Street.
What a
And Peter Kay is not involved in the making of this
people.
He
production.
should be.
Yeah, he should be.
You'll
yeah.
regret it.
By the way, Van Gerwen's secret weapon, do you know what it is?
Go on.
He likes to terrify his opponents with his handshake. I don't know
Is
if
it
I've
a
got
firm
it right.
one?
Oh, is that how you do
Scare
it?
you there, John?
Psych him out.
And the
Paddington Spur, yeah. I
stare.
don't know.
Oh, okay.
It seems to work for him,
Terrified
though. He's defending champion.
Yeah, great stuff. We will see you later. Mike, for now, thank you.
Now, the government is starting a 12-week consultation on which key A roads in England will benefit from new funding. Roads will be eligible for money under the new Roads Fund. Local authorities will be able to apply for up to £100 million of spending.
Critics, though, say the money would be better spent maintaining the current road network and improving public transport. Well, Bridget Fox is Sustainable Transport Manager campaigner for Campaign for Better Transport and joins us now. Good morning. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, Bridget. So what do we think of this? Unlocking potential, reaching new communities, extending the road network?
Yeah, we think, it's very good news that some of the national roads money is being passed on to hard-pressed local authorities for the roads we use every day. But the top priority from motorists, as reported by the independent road user watchdog, is maintaining the roads we've got, fixing those potholes. There's a £12 billion pothole backlog, and local authorities are going into the new year setting their budgets. To be told there's £100 million for new roads when there's so much more money needed to maintain the roads we've got does seem like the wrong priority.
£100 million. I mean, in terms of, you're talking about building bypasses, connecting up dual carriageways where there's single carriageway at the moment. I mean, how far does £100 million go across England?
Not very far. I mean, a major road scheme may cost £1 million, so we're not talking about very many schemes nationwide. This is taxpayers' money from all over the country, and to spend it on a few bypasses, which may be very controversial locally, won't benefit people across the country as a whole, whereas maintaining the roads we've got would meet people's needs.
If you have a business, though, and you are transporting goods or people around, those new bypasses could make a huge amount of difference, couldn't they? They could make business better at a time when we need to be making business better, whereas maybe fixing potholes, making cosmetic repairs as well, maybe don't have the same kind of benefit.
Well, some of these repairs are vital for safety. And we've seen the problems when roads go unrepaired, and then there's severe weather instances, and you have really extreme examples of roads being taken completely out of action, and nobody wants to see that happen. So they are more than cosmetic. But there's a bit of a fallacy that somehow building a new road will solve traffic problems. All the experience is they quickly fill up with new traffic, and then you're back to where you started. It's a very expensive and temporary fix. Getting more people the opportunity to travel by public transport, which makes much better use of road space, would free up the roads for essential road users and be much more efficient all round.
I don't know whether you've seen it. The front page of the Times today is talking about the government getting closer and closer to a system where we have to pay for driving, a road charging, lorries to start with, maybe all vehicles to follow. What about that idea as a more direct way of funding the kind of projects we're talking about?
Well, that makes sense. We're already used to the concept that if you travel by train or plane or bus, you pay as you go.
But aren't we already paying in our road tax?
Well, all taxpayers fund the road programme, whether they drive or not. From 2020, vehicle excise duty will be used for the major roads, for motorways and some of the A roads. But most roads locally will still be funded from general taxes.
And so, as far as this extra money, the £100 million for roads that we're talking about today from the government for England, when will we see the difference? I mean, it's all very well almost having different communities, places competing with one another to get the money for their community, their road. But what are we talking about? I mean, how long till the roads happen?
Well, the government's outlining an investment programme that will start from 2020, so that's the timeframe we're looking at. That's when the next road investment strategy for the motorway network starts, and the plan is to introduce this funding for A roads that are currently looked after by local councils on the same timescale. So over the next 2 to 5 years, people begin to see a difference. But of course, we're already living with the £12 billion pothole backlog, and many people agree with us that that should be the priority.
I know you keep coming back to potholes and how important that is.
Well, it's a big issue for people.
No, it is a big issue.
It's a real problem with infrastructure investment in this country. We build new stuff and then we don't maintain it.
I know it is, and it's something we've talked about a lot, and I know that our audience cares about it greatly as well. Bridget, for now, thank you very much indeed. Thanks for talking to us this morning. It's something we'll follow here on Breakfast.
Time now is 8:48. Let's find out what's happening with the weather with Matt. Hello again, Matt. How's it looking?
Hi Tina, John, very good morning to you. Well, distinctly disappointed if you want something particularly festive from your weather forecast for the next few days. Bing Crosby's dreaming of a white Christmas. Switch one of those words for the word grey and you're probably closer. Mild, cloudy really sums it up for many in the run-up to Christmas. Quite windy at times in the north, as we'll see some wet weather too. A chance that some will see something a little bit colder, though, as we go into Christmas Day, as I'll show you very shortly. But out there at the moment, incredibly mild for this stage in December. We've seen temperatures hold around 13 degrees so far this morning in northeastern parts of Scotland. All areas, temperatures above where you should be this time of the year. Lots of cloud, though. Best of the breaks, though, across eastern Scotland, northeast England with some morning sunshine. Wet start in Shetland. It will turn wet across northwest Scotland. And if you're on the move across western parts of England and Wales, particularly over some of the higher routes, Pennines into Wales, across the moors of southwest England, just be wary. There could be some fog around, as we could see at times in the Channel Islands too. So even into the afternoon, very misty over the higher ground for many. The breeze not too strong across the south. Most places dry. A little bit of drizzle squeezed out the cloud maybe in the west, but I said most should be fine. And we will see some breaks in the cloud somewhere from the north of the Bristol Channel all the way through towards Merseyside. Some sunshine winning through here, 12-13 possible. 13-14 northeast England, where we'll see some sunshine come and go through the day. Bit of brightness to the east of Northern Ireland too, turning wetter to the far northwest later on. And to southern and eastern Scotland, you should stay dry with a bit of sunshine, but in the northwest, we finish the day with outbreaks of rain. Now tonight, that rain will push its way southwards. Some gusty winds, in fact, across Scotland and Northern England through today and into tonight. But just notice how the rain, as it edges its way southwards, works its way back north again. So lots of rain to come to take us into Christmas Eve across Scotland. Most will go in dry. Again, a fairly mild note to tomorrow. So if it's last minute Christmas shopping, well, at least it's not going to be too cold. If you're on the move, a fair breeze blowing across the country. But whilst the further south you are, greater chance of staying dry. The further north you are, we are like to see some rain at times from that wriggling weather front. In fact, there could be some minor flooding around in some parts of western Scotland as we go through Christmas Eve. Certainly a lot of surface water and spray in the roads. Turned wetter into Northern Ireland during the late morning into afternoon period. And then by the end of the afternoon, far north of England could see some rain too. Far north of Scotland, though, brightens up later on. Much of England and Wales, other than the odd spot of light rain or drizzle in the breeze, should be dry. And a few more cloud breaks as we go into Christmas Eve as well. Temperatures 11 or 12 Celsius. Now, for the children amongst you, there is some good news. Of course, a certain man departs the North Pole tomorrow on his journey around the world. As he leaves, only a few flurries of flakes of snow potentially shouldn't stop him leaving, and the elves will be hard at work defrosting the sleigh as well. By the time he reaches us, well, there've been some overnight rain in Scotland, Northern Ireland to take us into Christmas Day, but brightening up here, and potentially a few flakes of snow on the Scottish mountains. Feeling cooler here, but for England and Wales, some parts of East Anglia and South East may stay dry until late in the day, but it's going to be a day for sitting down, snuggling up in front of the TV with us here on BBC One. Across parts of northern England, western England and Wales, some wet and windy weather is set to sweep its way through. That's how it's looking. Back to you both.
I think he's going to need his wellies, isn't he, Matt? Looks like it's going to be a wet day.
Certainly is.
See you later, Matt. Thanks.
Now, it's been a big week of song here on Breakfast as our Big Sing brought together 6 choirs for a sing-along that crossed the entire country, and we asked you to join in.
And you did. You did it in your vests, you did it in your dressing gowns, you did it in your bathrobes, you did it with your dogs. You've all been singing along with us this week.
I mean, some didn't know all the words, many didn't even know the tune, but you tried, and for that we would like to say a big thank you.
It's very diplomatic.
I mean, it's the trying that counts, isn't it? It's the effort. And here are your best bits.
Oh, come, O ye faithful, joyful and triumphant. Oh, come ye to Bethlehem. Behold him. I don't know the words to this bit.
Can we give them a massive round of applause, everybody who's listening into that this morning?
Lovely.
Yes. It's 8:55 now. We've had the singing. It's time. What else? Christmas time, New Year.
Bonging.
Big Ben would sound. We thought this year maybe we wouldn't get Big Ben because of the repairs that are going on. We've talked in the past about the repairs that are being done to the Great Bell in the Elizabeth Tower. You can see there the Palace of Westminster just there in the bottom left-hand corner. Fell silent, Big Ben, in August for the repair work, but apparently it's about to ring again over Christmas.
In the next few minutes, it will, for the festive period, resume its hourly chimes from 9 this morning until New Year's Day. And Ricky Boletto's getting a closer look from the Palace of Westminster rooftop. Hi, Ricky. Very exciting. Not long to go now.
I know, contain yourselves, please. It is very exciting. It is one of the most famous landmarks here in London. And for tourists who've been coming to see Big Ben over the last few months, they've not been able to get that full effect and hear the chimes because Big Ben has been pretty much silent since the summer. And that's because of those extensive renovation works which are being carried out behind me. You can see it's covered in scaffolding. Well, we've been given very special access to the roof of the Houses of Parliament this morning. And yes, very shortly, we will be hearing those chimes for the first time live here on BBC Breakfast. Fingers crossed it all works. Now, the reason why it won't chime for the next 4 years is because Big Ben is incredibly loud. And if you're working in there while all of that is being carried out, that chime at the top of the hour is deafening and potentially a safety risk for those people working on the renovations. And the decision to make sure it's silent for the next 4 years wasn't taken lightly. Aside from Brexit and all the other political wranglings that happen here at the Houses of Parliament, talk about Big Ben going bongless has been a hot topic of conversation in the corridors of power. Now, MPs and even the Prime Minister, Theresa May, weighed in at one point saying that 4 years was too long and waiting until 2021 for the chimes to return wasn't really good enough. But they have expressed that it will be bonging at very special occasions like Remembrance Day and the festive period, and of course New Year's Eve as well. And today at 9 o'clock we will hear those first bongs chime in, and they'll be carrying all the way through up until the 1st of January at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, the extensive renovations will take quite a long time, and someone who knows an awful lot about those renovations is joining us this morning. Steve Jaggs. Now, your official title is Keeper of the Great Clock. That is an impressive title. Were you surprised by the reaction from people when they found out it wouldn't be chiming for the next 4 years?
Yes, of course I was surprised, but you've got to understand that this is the Elizabeth Tower. This is home to Big Ben. This is an international symbol of democracy known worldwide, and we have a moral obligation as well as a legal obligation to maintain this tower for future generations to enjoy.
Can you just talk us through some of the renovations? What's actually being done that's going to take 4 years?
Well, at the moment, as you can see, the scaffolding work is rapidly approaching completion. They're almost at the top of the 96 metres tower. That'll be finished early part of next year. Once that is completed, then we can start undergoing the restoration works and the conservation works to preserve the tower. It will start at the top with the cast iron roofs. Now, the cast iron roof up there is in poor state of disrepair. It is going rusty, as you can imagine, with any building of that particular type of age, and each roof tile will be individually marked like a big jigsaw, and each tile will be taken off, will be sent away from site for conservation work, and that tile will be brought back to site and replaced in exactly the self-same position.
Quickly, are you nervous? Because we've got about 20 seconds to go until we potentially hear these chimes from Big Ben. Will it happen?
Nerves are a good thing because it means that people care about something, and I've got every confidence in my highly skilled clockmakers that this will work on time.
OK, well, listen, I'm going to stop talking because we want to hear those chimes live on BBC Breakfast this morning. Now, since 1923, those chimes have been ringing out on New Year's Eve on the BBC, and they will do on New Year's Eve this year as well. But let's fall silent now for Big Ben returning at 9 o'clock this morning.
bongs are back. Big Ben ringing in for Christmas and will continue doing so till New Year. Should we listen again?
A promise was made to sound the bells.
And they kept their promise, and it worked. You needn't have worried.
They did.
Good morning. It's just gone. Absolutely 9 o'clock. We know that officially. You're watching BBC Breakfast on Saturday morning with Tina Dahealy and John Kay.
And first, some breaking news to bring you. As more than 70 firefighters tackle a fire at London Zoo.
Yeah, London Fire Brigade say half of the Adventure Cafe and a shop which contains an animal petting area are currently alight. No reports at the moment of any injuries.
Good morning. It's Saturday, the 23rd of December.
We're going to be live at London Zoo in the next few minutes. Also here on Breakfast this morning, the FBI says it's foiled a Christmas Day terror attack in San Francisco. A former US Marine has been arrested, accused of planning a suicide mission at the city's Pier 39 tourist attraction.
A man's due in court in York, charged with the murder of a woman who was stabbed to death at the supermarket where she worked.
We're live at a Christmas homeless shelter here in central London on the day that new figures released show that the number of hidden rough sleepers is much higher than was previously thought.
Well, in the sport, there's a festive feast at the Emirates. Some early presents for fans. 3 goals in 5 minutes for Arsenal, but it's not enough as Liverpool strike back to earn a draw in a real cracker to kick off the festive fixtures.
One of the world's rarest pigs caught on camera. Scientists thought the Javan warty had been driven to extinction. Well, we will hear how it's now been rediscovered.
And looking ahead to Christmas, Matt has all the weather. Good morning, Matt.
Good morning. Well, it's another incredibly mild day across the UK today. Fairly grey for many of you too, but there is some colder air getting closer. Will it arrive in time for Christmas Day? I've got your full forecast coming up.
OK, Matt, we'll see you very shortly. Thank you very much indeed. So weather, sport to come. Let's have a look at our top story, though.
Yeah, more than 70 firefighters are tackling a blaze this morning at London Zoo. It broke out in a cafe and shop near to a petting area.
Yeah, London Zoo, of course, is in central London, not far from the centre of the capital, where lots of people are going to be heading for shopping and various other Christmas activities near Regent's Park. But we understand that just after 6 o'clock this morning, the fire broke out in a petting zoo area. So 3 hours ago, but we understand it is still burning. We can speak to our reporter Jane Francis Kelly, who's at the scene for us this morning. Jane, what can you tell us? You see the fire brigade still there in force?
Yes, they're still there in force. About 72 firefighters attended. It was 10 pumps also attended. The fire brigade were called at about 8 minutes past 6 this morning. The fire broke out in the Adventure Cafe and shop. And there is a petting area there, but it's not believed that animals have been affected, that animals were there. The Press Association say that it's near the Meerkat enclosure, but as I say, it is believed that animals haven't been hurt and that there are no injuries. I mean, the good news is that speaking to the fire fighters that have been coming out, that they say that it's largely out. It's no longer the flames can be seen. I think that we can just see smoke. So luckily it has been contained, and it would appear that major damage has not been caused. I have tried to get hold of London Zoo to see if it's going to affect their opening, but so far they haven't called me back.
Yeah, we've seen some pictures that have been released this morning from London Fire Brigade, which show when it was still dark, the smoke and the number of firefighters who were there. I mean, 70 firefighters, 10 fire engines. This was a sizable response, and I guess that's partly because it's the position of the zoo. I mean, for people who don't know the capital, it's there in Regent's Park. It's a crucial area of central London, really, isn't it?
Absolutely. And London Zoo is hugely popular, attracting thousands and thousands of people. It's supposed to be open at 10 o'clock today, and clearly people have pre-booked. And it's the school holidays, it's just before Christmas, a very popular time. So obviously this is very worrying, and people are also would be worried about the animals, the great deal of affection for them. So, I mean, yes, clearly they wanted to make sure that they contained it and that no damage was done.
Jane Francis-Kelly, thank you very much indeed for bringing us up to date there from London Zoo.
And I should just say, London Fire Brigade say that around 3/4 of the Adventure Cafe and shop and half of the roof was alight.
Oh, right. So it sounds like it was quite a big fire. It sounds like are they saying it's mainly out now? It sounds from Jane Francis-Kelly. It sounds like there's no sign of any smoke at the moment. So it sounds like it's under control. But clearly, for a while, that was quite a concern.
And the cause not yet known, but we will bring you more on that as we get it. Now, a former US Marine has been arrested on suspicion of planning a terror attack in San Francisco on Christmas Day.
Yes, Everett Aaron Jameson was held after allegedly discussing the plot with undercover FBI agents. From California, our correspondent Peter Bowes reports.
One of San Francisco's most popular tourist attractions, Pier 39, packed with shops and restaurants. The FBI says Everett Jameson planned to attack the area on Christmas Day. Using explosives, he wanted to funnel the crowds into a location where he could inflict casualties. The alleged plot came to light after someone reported Jameson for suspicious activity on Facebook. He liked posts sympathetic with the so-called Islamic State group, and he voiced support for the Halloween attack in New York City when a lorry was driven onto a crowded bike path, killing 8 people, and the mass shooting in San Bernardino in 2015. Jameson's home was raided on Wednesday. Investigators found several weapons and ammunition and a will. Agents believe the attack was to be a suicide mission. And there was a note that referred to Donald Trump's recent announcement that the US would recognise Jerusalem as the capital of Israel.
It's really unbelievable. It's just hard to fathom right now. I really don't know what to say, how to feel. Really, it's just shocking. That's my son.
In a statement, the US Attorney General Jeff Sessions said, "Our incredible law enforcement officers have once again helped thwart an alleged plot to kill Americans." The FBI says the public in San Francisco were never in imminent danger.
This time the FBI got his man, but the concern is how many could there be out there that is not on the FBI's or local law enforcement's radar, and that's what keeps us up at night.
The former Marine has appeared in court. Through his lawyer, he denied the allegations. If convicted, he faces a fine and a maximum sentence of 20 years in prison. Peter Bowes, BBC News, Los Angeles.
A man's due in court this morning charged with murdering a woman as she worked in a supermarket.
Yes, Neville Horde, who's 44, will appear before magistrates in York over the death of Jodie Wiltshire in Skipton. Our North of England correspondent Judith Moritz reports.
Malcolm and Jodie Wiltshire were looking forward to a family Christmas. Now he is left grieving, paying tribute to her as a doting mother and loving wife. Jodie Wiltshire was getting ready for the holidays, wearing her festive jumper while serving supermarket shoppers. Jodie had worked at the Skipton Aldi since it opened 2 years ago. The store was full when she was stabbed. Trolleys were abandoned as fearful shoppers scattered, while several staff and customers rushed to help. There was chaos inside the shop as people realised what had happened. And as Jodie lay dying, the first person to intervene was a man in his 60s who grappled with the attacker for a long time as he tried to restrain him. Despite efforts to save Jodie, she died on the shop floor. The supermarket became a crime scene, forensic staff and police officers taking evidence away. The shop was closed, with customers coming instead to leave tributes for the popular member of staff.
Whenever I've shopped in Aldi, she's always been friendly, pleasant, a lovely girl, really. And it's just, what a shock. Absolute shock, really.
The community here is small and tight-knit. Jodie Wiltshire worked at its heart, well-known and well-liked. A 44-year-old man has been charged with her murder. Judith Moritz, BBC News, Skipton.
The United Nations Security Council has passed severe new sanctions against North Korea aimed at cutting oil supplies vital for its missile and nuclear programs.
Yeah, the sanctions which were proposed by the United States also force North Koreans who are working overseas to return home, as Nada Tawfik reports.
This is the 10th Security Council resolution imposing sanctions on North Korea. None before it has convinced Kim Jong-un to abandon his nuclear program. But diplomats hope this resolution will bite hard enough to change the regime's calculus, or at the very least restrict its ability to carry out additional nuclear and missile tests. President Trump specifically asked President Xi of China to cut oil to Pyongyang, believing it would be a pivotal step. Mr. Trump celebrated the adoption of new sanctions, tweeting, "The world wants peace, not death."
Today's resolution achieves an 89% total reduction of the Kim regime's ability to import gasoline, diesel, and other refined products. And should the North Korean regime conduct another nuclear or ballistic missile test, this resolution commits the Security Council to take even further action.
The resolution also requires countries to expel North Koreans working abroad within 24 months in an effort to cut off an important source of revenue. 15 North Korean officials in the ministry which manages logistics for the army will now be added to the UN blacklist.
That's Nada Tawfik reporting from the United Nations in New York.
He's performed with Lulu, Victoria Pendleton and Anastasia. Now Brendan Cole can add the Duchess of Cornwall to his list of dance partners.
Yes, she also welcomed the judge Craig Revel Horwood and former Strictly contestants Judy Murray, Robbie Coltrane, I'd pay to see that, Robbie Savage and Colin Jackson. They've been filming at Buckingham Palace, filming a special section of the Strictly Come Dancing Christmas special. Brendan said later that he thought Camilla knew her way around the dance floor.
Interesting.
That's quite a compliment.
It is, yeah. The Strictly special is on BBC One at 6:30 p.m. on Christmas Day. You have to watch it to find out what happened.
So many sequins at Buckingham Palace, I'd have thought they just all blend into the background.
Yeah. OK, the last Friday before Christmas is traditionally one of the busiest nights for emergency services, and it's mainly because of calls due to people drinking too much, excess alcohol.
Yeah, ambulance services across the country drafted in extra crews and control room staff. And our next two guests are, well, they've been braving the streets overnight trying to ease the pressure on emergency services in Manchester. Good morning to you. Laura Harrison is from newly formed Welfare Unit and James Heighton is from Manchester Village Angels.
Morning.
Are you exhausted?
Good morning. Just a little bit, yeah. I think after this I'm going to go home and wake up to open my presents on Christmas Day.
You're going to sleep right through till then?
Absolutely.
So talk us through what your roles were. What were you doing?
I was out with the Village Angels, so we are a programme established by the LGBT Foundation in 2011, and we are a team of volunteers that goes out through the village and we just look after people and make sure they stay safe, make sure they have a good time, look after people who maybe can't look after themselves because of various different reasons, and just make sure everyone has a good time, really.
So, Laura, how was it? How was last night?
It was all right. It was just not as busy as it was last week, obviously. I think people just, they wanted to go out straight away from last weekend, and then this weekend, I think they've just gone home to all their families and stuff, ready for Christmas Day. Last Saturday as well was quite busy. We had quite a few people, like all the different incidents, everything like that, but we're just there to help people and stuff, and as Radius it's a big thing for us to look after them, make sure that people have got the phone charged, that we can get them home safe, and that person has got someone else that they can turn to when they feel like they're in a time of need.
What are you looking out for when you're out? Because typically in any busy city you will see late at night lots of people making their way home after a night out. How do you know someone might need your help, they're in trouble?
A lot of times they'll just ask someone, do you have any means of me charging my phone? We're in high vis, so they can see that we're there for a reason. So people will often just come up to us and speak to us. But you also find there's a lot of vulnerable people just walking around on their own. You'll also see vulnerable girls, vulnerable males, everything. It just intoxicated people that could perhaps be on their own, putting themselves in a bit of sticky situations, quite close to roads, just stuff like that.
James, do you get cross with people when you're dealing with somebody and they're drunk and they're falling over and they're maybe getting abusive? It must be quite tempting just to say, well, you've done this to yourself.
No, it can be a challenging role sometimes, but we have a really great team of volunteers and we have a really good community spirit. We're really embedded within the community.
You must get a bit of grief sometimes, do you, from people?
No, not really, not that often. we're quite visible in our, like, as you'll see, there's bright pink high-vis jackets, so people recognise us, people see us out, and they're like, oh my God, it's the Angels. I think last week we had someone dressed as an elf who wanted a selfie with us. So, yeah, people kind of, we work in conjunction with the GMP and the bar staff and the local bars as well, so it's a real good community thing, and it's the kind of thing that I think, from my own experiences, if I was, say, in that kind of vulnerable state when I was going out, I'd want someone like a Village Angel to be there for me, and I think everyone kind of understands that. And some people just want to get home, they just want to charge their phone, and I think...
Laura, what's interesting about you is that you also work as a door supervisor. So how did you probably see people at their worst in some cases. So what made you decide to get involved with this?
Well, as Radius, it was the gap in the industry. Basically, it was the people leaving the clubs to people getting home safely. There was a massive gap, and Radius seen the fault in it. So this is where the welfare unit came about last year. And obviously it was a massive hit last year, and it was really good, but it wasn't noticed as much as it needed to be, and it wasn't as such valued as much as it could be. But this year we're in partnership with the Manchester City Council and also the GMP, which just to take the strain off them as well, and just to make sure that, because we have a private ambulance as well, so we can blue light someone's hospital when needed, and we've got the welfare staff, we've got 2 medics on site, you've got myself. It's more about looking after people, and we're there to help. We're not there for the conflict side. We're just there to make sure that someone does need, when they need to get home, they get home, and they've always got that means to turn to. Yeah.
And you've been working overnight in Manchester, but there are similar teams doing the same kind of thing in towns and cities right across the UK, aren't they?
Yeah.
And I suppose you take the pressure off A&E. If you can deal with somebody in what's like a field hospital in a city centre and then send them on their way safely, they don't have to go to hospital and block the A&E department.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, nights like last night or last weekend when it's Mad Friday, the police should really be dealing with the most serious incidents. So that's kind of what we want to do. We want to take the pressure off the blue light services and deal with things that we can deal with, and then make sure that the police can focus on what they need to focus on. All
right, well, look, thank you. We'll let you go back and have a sleep. I can't believe we made you come in here after a full night out.
Straight through.
But it's interesting, I think, isn't it, that you're saying it's quieter than maybe it would have been. You know, maybe everybody's gone where they're going for Christmas already. And
Last weekend was really pretty hectic, but I think this weekend people may have gone home for Christmas.
OK. Is that it for you guys now? You're going to bed?
Going to bed, and then starts all over again tonight.
Well done.
Thank you. Thanks. Well done.
Thank you.
OK, 9:17. Let's find out what's happening with the weather. And I'm predicting mild will be a word you'll use.
Not according to that picture.
Oh, well, not according to that picture, no. That's slightly misleading.
This is just a little bit of a tease, to be honest, Tina and John, but I think you are closer to the mark. I just thought I'd just do a recap of some of the previous Christmases across the UK. Our snowiest one was back only in 1981 in Perthshire, where we saw 47 centimetres of snow fall. We're not going to see anything like that this year, though 1 or 2 spots in northern Scotland may see the odd flake. But as Tina's hinted at, we're heading towards the milder end of things. The mildest of all was not too long ago, actually. Well, it was a bit longer ago, 1920 in Devon, where we saw temperatures at 15.6 degrees. And we've not been far off that so far this morning. Temperatures to start the day have been around 13 Celsius in the northeast of Scotland, and quite widely in double figures now, and they'll only rise a little bit further as we go throughout the day. Now, the eastern parts of Scotland, northeast England, where you most likely to see a bit of sunshine through the day. The cloud will break up every now and again elsewhere, but for some you'll sit under grey skies all day long. North of Scotland, some wet and windy weather to go with it. Gusty winds east to high ground and into the northeast of England too. But the cloud is sitting on the hills in western parts of England and Wales, so if you're travelling home for Christmas today, if your journey takes you across some of the high routes to the moors, the Welsh mountains, be prepared, there will be some fog. Still a little bit of fog every now and again towards the Channel Islands, but the breeze is picking up here. That will help to lift it a little bit, and it will help to break the cloud to the east of Wales and through the West Midlands, even maybe as far as north as Cheshire and Merseyside. You could see some sunshine into the afternoon. Better chance of sunshine east of the Pennines, where we could see temperatures up to around 12, 13, maybe 14 degrees. Some brightness to the east of Northern Ireland. A few splashes of rain in the north and west. Northwest Scotland, rather wet afternoon in store, but to northeast, 15 degrees around the Moray Firth and Aberdeenshire this afternoon with sunny spells. Best of those though will be in the morning. Through tonight, though, across in Scotland, this is where we'll see rain ease for time, but then start to turn more widespread later on. Most of you, though, will have a dry night, a fairly cloudy night, and again, a fairly mild night to take us into Christmas Eve. So this is the chart for Christmas Eve. High pressure to the south of us. That's keeping lots of fog across other parts of Western Europe at the moment. At least with the isobars on the chart, they're a bit closer we'll see more of a breeze blow. That will clear any fog we do have and lift it off the mountains too. But weather fronts wriggling around Scotland, Northern Ireland. Outbreaks of rain during Christmas Eve. Some heavy bursts and persistent rain in parts of western Scotland. That caused some minor flooding, setting a lot of surface water on the roads. And that will edge down into far north of England later on. North of Scotland brightens up into the afternoon. And across other parts of England and Wales, still plenty of cloud. The odd spot of light rain or drizzle in the breeze. But better chance of some cloud breaks here and there. Further north, though, of course, a certain man will be setting off on Christmas Eve, set to push his way towards the South Pacific. Only a few flakes of snow, very cold, though, as he sets off on his journey, but nothing too significant to stop him leaving on time. And as he arrives on our shores for Christmas Day, well, it looks like after some overnight rain in Scotland, Northern Ireland, things will brighten up. 1 or 2 snow flurries on the Scottish mountains, but for England and Wales, wet and windy weather will sweep its way eastwards, and it will stay mild. Tina and John.
OK, thank you very much indeed. Matt, for now. Cheers.
Wet, windy and mild. Oh, well. Well, now, on one of our top stories this morning, more than 9,000 people in Britain are considered what we're calling hidden homeless. That's people who are constantly sleeping on public transport or pitching a tent to avoid rough sleeping.
Yeah, the Homeless Charity Crisis is warning the government that this number could increase by another 50% over the next decade if it doesn't take urgent action to address homelessness. Well, Breakfast John Maguire is at a crisis centre, a Christmas shelter for us this morning. And John, we've seen that over the next few days, and it started already, they're going to be so busy there.
Yeah, that's right, John. 13 of these centres right across the UK opened their doors for the first time last night. Some are 24-hour, some are just day shelters, but they expect to see around 4,500 people over the next week or so. People come in, they can get obviously something to eat, a hot meal, a hot drink, crucially also legal advice, housing advice and medical examinations, medical contact as well. Jason Warner is responsible for organising all of that. Jason, what sort of issues do people come into the shelter at Christmas with?
We get a range of problems, through from simple colds, coughs, through to severe chest infections, a lot of skin problems, but not just physical health problems, but mental health problems as well. That can also tie in with drugs and alcohol issues, what people may use drugs and alcohol to survive on the streets.
And often this is the only medical check some of these people will get all year.
Yeah, this is the only service they feel comfortable in accessing. That's because they may not have the confidence or they've had a bad experience of accessing NHS services or other services, so we are a vital service during this period.
All right, Jason, thanks very much. All the best for the next week or so. He's going to be a very busy man, as is John Sparks. And good morning also to Paula. John, we're talking about these figures today, the research that you've commissioned. The numbers seem surprising. Did they surprise you?
Well, they're shocking. So we wanted the most comprehensive view we could get, and we found that not only we got about 9,000 people sleeping rough, but another 9,000 who are hidden sleeping rough, so in tents, in cars, on buses, which of course is really dangerous, and they're hidden from the help that they really, really need.
Mm-hmm. And Paula, in recent years you have been helped, but a few years ago you found yourself at crisis point, really.
Absolutely, yeah. I found myself sleeping in my car for 3 months before being moved into a hostel, and it was quite scary, to say the least.
Yeah, people might not be able to imagine what that's like. What was it like, having to sleep in your car?
Well, you got no privacy. You got no privacy at all. It's like using blankets and towels to put up at the window so you get a little bit, so that nobody's like looking in at you when you're trying to sleep. And it's not knowing who's outside, because the only good thing you've got is you can lock yourself in, and that's about the only security you've got. But apart from that, it's quite scary. It's quite terrifying.
Okay. Thank you very much indeed to both of you. All the best over Christmas. I know, as I say, you will be extremely busy, as will these shelters, as I say, right across the country. 9 in London, 4 others in places like Edinburgh, Newcastle, Birmingham, Coventry. Expecting to be extremely busy actually over the next couple of days. Quick line, certainly what the government's saying about homelessness, saying it's a complex issue with no single solution, but it is committed to halving rough sleeping by 2022 and eliminating rough sleeping by 2027. So that is the objective the government has set to try to tackle this crisis situation. Back to you guys.
OK, John, for now, thank you very much indeed. Good work to the team.
You're watching Breakfast from BBC News. It's 9:24. Let's take a look at the newspapers. Former Chief Prosecutor Nazir Afzal is here to tell us what's caught his eye. Let's start with this one first of all. Hopes of Christmas release for Nazanin dashed by court.
Absolutely. People may have forgotten, Nazanin Zaghari Ratcliffe is a British national, dual national. 20 months ago, she went on a family holiday to Tehran in Iran and was detained on trumped-up charges of espionage. She's been in prison now for 20 months after a secret trial. Until a couple of days ago, there was some idea that she might be given some early release. Unfortunately, there's been an announcement from the Iranian authorities that she now may face other charges of propaganda, whatever that amounts to, which may, of course, mean that she will not be released to be able to come back to her family. And, of course, the Foreign Secretary got involved, as you probably recall, a few weeks ago. It is really troubling. She's not the only, sadly, British national detained abroad on trumped-up charges following secret courts. But we've got to keep it in the public eye to remember that she shouldn't be where she is. She should be back home with her family.
OK, and Boris Johnson's visit to Tehran earlier this month doesn't seem to have made a difference in terms of release at Christmas.
He hopes it has, but it appears that it may well have backfired.
Story here in the Mail and some of the others as well that Princess Michael of Kent has had to apologise for wearing a controversial brooch.
It's called blackamoor, which is it's a 19th century. In the 19th century, it was very popular during the height of the British Empire. It's of a black figure, as you can see, and she wore it yesterday to a lunch which was in honour of Meghan Markle, Miss Meghan Markle, and. On many people's view, it's overtly racist. Princess Michael of Kent has apologised for wearing it, saying that it was thoughtless, or she didn't mean anything by wearing it. But it's so enormous.
Just a bit of context. So, blackamoor is a genre of figurines, small sculptures or jewellery, which depict mostly men, but sometimes women with black skin, that were popular in the 18th century, but are now considered racially insensitive.
It's absolutely. I mean, it was very popular then. It's still worth £5,000-10,000, so it's not a cheap trinket. But I think
it's not
some people
small either, is it?
Some people might consider it very inappropriate, given you're having.
Let's have a look at it again.
And
it's noticeable.
It is, and I suppose attracting particular interest this year because Meghan Markle, who was at this Christmas lunch, has spoken about her life. Her mum is black in America, and she's talked about racism that she suffered throughout her life and career herself.
Exactly.
OK, moving on to this one. Free Christmas hamper offer lures 21 criminals into police trap.
It appears the criminals don't learn. This is the latest occasion where a police force, in this case South Yorkshire, have sent messages out to people who are wanted on warrant and said there's a free hamper with lots of alcohol and food, etc. Come and tell us when you want it delivered. They give them the time and the police turn up. Ta-da! You're now under arrest. And 21 people who are wanted by the police are now, as a result of this exercise, brought to justice. The police do it quite regularly. They have second-hand shops, for example, where they invite people who are handling stolen goods to come along. But you would have thought the criminals would have got the message there's nothing free in this world.
It's true.
Matt was showing us on the weather map he's plotting the route for Santa tomorrow night. But this piece in the Express suggesting that Santa's not in good health, it says.
It's really worrying. The Royal College of GPs have decided that we need to know that Santa has suffered from alcoholism, gout, work-related stress, sleep deprivation because he's up all night, even something called Lyme's disease, which you get from ticks on reindeer. And they obviously make the point that it's a very unhealthy lifestyle, but they don't answer the fact that he's been around for hundreds of years.
That is where we will have to leave it, because this is where we say goodbye to viewers on BBC One. Bye for now. We will be back with the headlines on the news channel in just a moment.
Have a great day.